When a woman has once been forgotten, once stopped believing in tenderness, is there still someone gentle enough to touch her heart without breaking it again? After years of silence, of empty embraces, of conversations no one truly listens to, she hasn't turned cold. She's simply learned to hide the softest part of herself, not because she no longer wants love, but because she no longer trusts that someone will enter gently enough. Imagine an old castle deep in the woods, no locks, no walls. Yet over the years, those who visited came in too fast, too loud. They arrived with promises, impatient eyes, hurried steps, and left only echoes behind. That woman is that castle. She once opened her doors, once believed, once hoped, but now the door only opens to someone who steps softly, slow enough not to break anything, quiet enough to hear the wind drifting through the empty halls. One day, someone like that will come. He won't knock with words, but with presence. He won't trigger her defenses, but help her feel safe. He won't ask, "Will you love me?" but make her believe that beside him, she no longer has to brace herself. He won't enter to conquer, he'll stay because he truly wants to. If you are that kind of man, one who doesn't need control to prove his worth, but chooses calm to build trust, then this video is for you. This isn't a guide to seduction. It's a map of emotions, with 7 layers of connection, not marked on her body, but hidden deep in memories, in scars, and in the beliefs she once let go of. Stoic philosophy teaches us true strength doesn't lie in being the fastest to enter, but in being patient enough to be invited to stay. And if you're still listening now, maybe you're ready for this journey. We'll begin at the very first layer, the one a grown woman quietly hopes someone will touch with understanding. 1. Lower back, touching the feeling of being protected. There are touches not meant to take, but simply to whisper, "I'm here." No words, no rush, no need for anyone to witness, just a gentle motion like a passing breeze, but if it comes at the right time, it can stop a woman in her heart, not because it stirs desire, but because it restores a sense of trust, something she thought had long been lost. The lower back is a place easily forgotten. It's not celebrated in poems, nor is it the first spot to catch the eye. Yet for that very reason, it holds a quiet beauty like a hidden corner of a woman's soul no one ever thinks to notice. It carries a quiet vigilance, but it's also where she softens when she feels safe, and sometimes, just one well-timed touch, there is enough to remind her that she doesn't have to carry the world on her own. You don't need to grip her hand for her to know you're there. Just gently place your hand on her lower back. The moment she steps into an unfamiliar room, or when the two of you walk across a crowded street, in that moment, even if no words are spoken, she feels it clearly. Someone is watching, present, quietly shielding her without asking for permission. Epictetus once said, "Happiness doesn't lie in what we receive, but in feeling understood and protected." A touch to the lower back is the perfect embodiment of that, a form of protection that asks for nothing, controls nothing, and expects nothing in return. Just presence close enough to make her feel safe, but gentle enough not to make her feel possessed. And what's most special is this: mature women sense this more deeply than anyone. They don't wait for grand gestures, nor are they easily moved by showy acts, but they are exquisitely sensitive to subtle signals. A light touch, at the right time for them, can carry more weight than 1,000 promises. Picture 2 people quietly walking through a crowd. She doesn't look back. You say nothing, but your hand on her back becomes a wordless whisper. "I don't need to speak, because you can feel me." In that moment, she doesn't just feel protected, she feels an intimacy not born of desire, but of deep connection, quiet understanding, and safety. That touch is like an umbrella opening at just the right moment, not to overwhelm, but just enough to keep her shoulder dry. And precisely because it isn't flashy, it becomes truly refined. She doesn't need to turn to look at you, but in her heart, she knows with certainty you are there, not to lead her, but to quietly walk beside her. And that is also how a Stoic man touches a woman, not to make her lean into him, but to let her know that if ever she needs someone to lean on, he will not step away. 2. The nape, touching fragile memories. There are places on a woman's body that are not meant to be explored, only felt, gently, softly, like touching something that was once beautiful, but also once deeply fragile. And the nape of her neck is exactly such a place. When you glide your fingers across it, in an embrace, not intentionally, not with calculation, it stops being a gesture and becomes a moment when she realizes that someone is delicate enough to touch her without making her tense, because that place, more than anywhere else, holds everything she once felt with her whole heart. A fleeting glance, a clumsy whisper, a first touch that made her spine shiver, not from sensation, but from the feeling of being noticed. Truly and tenderly, time has made her cautious, and those once gentle memories have gone quiet with the passing years. Not gone, they've simply been tucked away more carefully, hidden where no one could find them. But then, one touch at just the right moment can bring it all back, like an old song that suddenly plays in a cafe on a rainy afternoon. It isn't loud, it isn't seductive, it's just so achingly familiar that she doesn't want it to stop. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nothing is more precious than a feeling awakened without being violated." That is exactly the essence of touching the nape. You don't stroke, you don't grasp, you simply glide like you're asking permission, not claiming anything. And if she lets you stay in that feeling just a little longer, then perhaps you've just touched the most feminine part of her, the part that was once delicate, once hurt, but never stopped longing to be awakened again. The nape is not for the impatient. It's not a sensual checkpoint to be conquered. It is a silent invitation, offered only to those who are patient enough to simply be present without needing to step in, refined enough to stand close without making the other pull away, gentle enough to stir old emotions without trying to claim them. And if you're sensitive enough, you'll see. Sometimes, a woman doesn't need someone to make her tremble. She just needs someone who makes her feel light, safe, seen not with eyes, but through silent empathy. And if, in that moment, you place your hand on the back of her neck and she doesn't pull away, don't think it's by chance. It might be you who just awakened something inside her, something even she forgot she still carried. And maybe, in that instant, you weren't just touching skin, you were touching the softest years of her life, the ones she had forgotten, now gently called back by someone who finally knew how to name them. 3. The arm, touching genuine listening. There are moments when the only thing a woman needs is not advice or promises, but a hand placed at the right time, in the right place, not to interrupt, but to let her know that someone is truly listening, not with ears, but with the heart. When you gently touch her arm while she's sharing something deeply personal, a memory, a fear, or something she's never told anyone, that touch is no longer an intimate gesture. It becomes a silent affirmation. I'm here, and I haven't missed a single word. And sometimes that silent moment carries more weight than anything spoken. Seneca once wrote, "The strong are not those who speak much, but those who know how to place their hand in the right place, at the right time, in the right silence." It's not the silence of someone lost for words, but the silence of someone full enough within that they don't feel the need to fill the space. Not everyone knows how to truly listen, and even fewer understand that some stories don't need comfort in words, only honest presence and a touch that comes at just the right moment, in just the right place. That's why the arm, seemingly ordinary, becomes a vital bridge of emotion. It's not just part of the body, it's the space between the thoughts spilling out from her and the feelings quietly stirring in you. When you place your hand on her arm, you're not interrupting the story. You're opening a path, a gentle invitation for her to step deeper into trust. Imagine sitting across from her in a quiet cafe. She's telling you about her childhood, or the heartbreaks she's never let anyone see clearly. In that moment, you don't have to say anything, just hold her gaze. And when she pauses at just the right point, place your hand on hers gently, like someone placing their hand on the page of a book. You're halfway through, not to take it away, but to understand why it moved you to tears. That moment, if it's real, can heal, but if it's forced, it may close her off forever. A mature woman doesn't need someone who always says the right thing. She needs someone calm enough not to interrupt her story, and honest enough not to pretend they understand when they haven't truly listened yet. So when you place your hand on her arm, make sure your fingers aren't tense, that your eyes don't drift away, that your mind isn't racing ahead to something else. Touch her like she's the only person left in the world you want to understand, and know that understanding doesn't live in solutions, but in the patience to hear a story through without interruption, without trying to conclude it. Because sometimes a woman doesn't need someone to give the right answer. She just needs someone to sit there, listen to her all the way through, and place a hand on her arm gently, as if saying through skin, "I don't know everything about your past, but I'm willing to sit beside you and understand it one piece at a time." 4. The knee touching trust. There are moments when you don't have to say a thing, no explaining, no trying to prove anything, just sitting beside someone, in silence, a warm enough silence that the outside world can pause, and both of you still feel whole. No words, no reasons needed, presence is enough. And if, in that moment, your hand gently rests on her knee, not to hold her back, not to lead her anywhere, then that touch is no longer just an action. It becomes a silent promise, a promise that says, "I don't need to do much, I just need to be here and mean it." In the soft lighting of a small cafe, as the two of you watch a film or speak in the middle of a quiet pause, silence suddenly feels more precious than any words. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Trust is built through silence, not words." And if there's one place that can touch that trust, gently yet clearly, it's the knee, not too private, but close enough to create a fitting intimacy. That touch doesn't ask, doesn't invite. It's not desire speaking, it's breath sinking, like two people watching the sunset. No need to talk, no need to act, just present, just there, breathing together in a rhythm that's slow and deep and still. There are touches that leave no mark, but leave a feeling you can't walk away from. Her knee might tremble, not from the cold, but because after so many years of holding everything in, for the first time, she doesn't have to, simply because beside her is someone who knows when to be quiet and how to rest his hand in the right place, not to claim, not to cross a line, just enough for her to feel safe. If a woman lets you touch her knee without pulling away, it's not an invitation, it's her letting go, her way of saying, "I trust you," without saying a word, not because you're handsome or magnetic, but because your quiet makes her feel she no longer needs to be on guard. In a world full of noise, silence is sometimes the most luxurious gift, and if you're sensitive enough, you'll notice the deepest emotions are often the quietest. When your hand rests on her knee, let your eyes follow softly. No need to stare, no need to possess, just a gentle look, as if two souls have agreed to pause, not because of something dramatic, but simply because it feels safe enough to stay. 5. Waist, where heartbeats fall into rhythm. And if you're truly beside her, in a moment that's close and quiet, then a touch at her waist might be where the deepest sense of harmony between you is marked. Not to hold her, not to steer her, but simply to remind her, I'm walking with you, in sync, not slower, not faster. There are times when you don't need to say, we're a good match, because your steps, your breaths, and your heartbeats say it for you. A touch at the waist, gentle and perfectly timed, is enough for both to know they're flowing together, no one leading, no one being pulled along. When you place your hand on her waist, what matters isn't the distance, it's the rhythm, not to hold, but to blend, not to lead, but to exist beside her like two melodies folding into each other, like that moment walking down an empty street, or swaying gently to music. Neither of you counts, and yet somehow, each subtle motion connects. Epictetus once said, harmony is when we walk together without needing to control each other, and a touch at the waist, if it's right, says exactly that. It's how you say, I'm not holding you back, I'm not pushing you forward, I just want to walk with you at the same rhythm, on the same frequency. The waist is a delicate place. The line between tenderness and possession can be as thin as a pulse. That's why it isn't meant for clumsy hands. A rushed touch here can make any woman tense, but if you're present, intentional, and sincere, she'll feel something you don't have to say, that you're not listening with your ears, but with the rhythm of her body. In slow moments, like walking down a quiet street together, or sharing a silent afternoon, your hand might rest gently at her waist, as if holding a shared breath, not pulling, not pushing, not trying to close the space, but simply being right there, at that central point where she feels balanced. The waist is the emotional center, where femininity, freedom, and the feeling of being seen without being claimed all converge. If a woman lets you touch her there without stepping away, it means she trusts you're not trying to lead, but to walk beside her. That kind of harmony doesn't come from technique, it comes from mindset, from not making closeness a goal, but simply wanting to be in the moment as it is, like when a song begins and two people fall into rhythm without a single word. You don't need to control her pace. You only need to listen with your hand, your breath, and your full presence. In that moment, a touch at the waist becomes its own silent language, where there's no longer me and you, only us. And if you're quiet enough to hold that harmony without breaking it, then maybe, just maybe, you've become the melody she wants to stay beside longer than a song. Not because it's loud, but because it makes her feel like she can be herself, fully, softly, without having to armor up to keep her distance. 6. Hands touching full presence. Some conversations are only surface level. What truly connects two people often hides in the silence between unfinished sentences and in a touch, given at the right moment. When you reach out and place your hand gently on hers, not to hold her, just to be present, every bit of distance seems to fade. In that quiet rhythm of touch, she doesn't need you to promise anything. She only needs to feel that you're truly there, fully, not distracted, not rushing, not halfway. When you hold a woman's hand, what she feels first isn't how tightly you hold it, but why. You don't need to squeeze for her to know she matters. Just hold her hand lightly enough so she feels you don't want the moment to slip away, and sincerely enough so she no longer has to wonder if your mind is with her or still somewhere else. On a slow afternoon, the two of you sit facing each other, no rush to say everything, no need to explain too much, just one gaze that doesn't avoid, and a hand gently resting on hers. Maybe she's sharing something deeply personal, maybe she's silent, unsure how to begin. In that moment, your hand, instead of interrupting, instead of comforting with words, just needs to stay. Not holding, just touching, not leading, just being. There's a line in Seneca's letter to Lucilius that says, "There is no greater gift than full presence." And women who've walked through love and loss often feel this truth deeply, not through grand gestures, but in how you place your hand on hers, quietly, slowly, without asking for anything in return. Hands don't just touch skin, they hold the feeling of being understood. A woman may have held many hands in her life, but if you're the first who knows how to hold hers without making her feel small, without making her feel like she's being pulled somewhere she doesn't want to go, then you've entered a quiet, fragile place in her, a part no one else has been gentle enough to reach. It's like when someone hands you a flower without a reason. They're not trying to impress you, they just want you to know you deserve to be cherished. A hand hold, when it's done right, carries the same meaning. If you're truly present, she'll feel it. And if you're only doing it because you think you should, she'll feel that too. Nothing ever reaches the heart without real presence. The hand is where peace comes to rest. It's where you no longer need to hold on to anything or lead anyone. You're just there in that moment, simply to keep it from slipping away. No squeezing, no letting go too soon. Just a quiet way of saying, through your skin, I'll stay with you, even when all the words have disappeared into silence. And at some point in her life, a woman no longer needs someone who speaks beautifully, acts perfectly, or tries to prove something big. She just needs someone real enough, steady enough to stay quietly and wholly with her, even through the most silent parts of life. 7. Wrist touching the hidden part of the soul. There are touches not meant for beginnings. They belong to the parting, like a final whisper, when no one is trying to hold on anymore, only trying to leave something behind, something light, but deep enough to linger for a very long time. When you reach out, lift her wrist after a date, and kiss it if you do it right. No one sees it as seduction, they see reverence, because the wrist isn't just the end of the hand, it's where the blood runs closest to the surface, where the heartbeat almost reaches your lips, where every unfinished emotion gathers before someone walks away. A place too small to hold on, but deep enough never to forget. There is no goodbye perfect enough for people who once gave each other something beautiful, but sometimes a small gesture, very small, can carry everything left unsaid, and a kiss on the wrist, if it's sincere, can say, "I won't hold you, but I saw you, and I am grateful for that." Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Learn to leave the way you arrived, gently and with reverence." The wrist is the perfect place to say that, without words. It's not a kiss to provoke. It's a kiss to acknowledge, I don't need to walk forward with you in order to keep a part of you with me. The wrist is small, delicate, and so easy to overlook, but for that very reason, it carries its own kind of memory, like old wounds that no longer hurt, but still remain, reminding us we were once fragile. And when you kiss a woman's wrist, you're telling her, I know you're not perfect. I see where you've been torn, but I still choose you, whole, just as you are. There's no need to linger, no need to leave a trace, just close enough to feel her heartbeat, if you're still enough. That moment isn't for winning points, it's for earning trust. Trust that even if tomorrow never brings you back together, She'll remember that someone once saw the hidden part of her soul and did nothing but leave a quiet kiss. The wrist is an ending that needs no performance. It's the quiet period at the end of a full sentence of feeling, and the man who knows how to touch it, not with his lips, but with his presence, will remain somewhere in her memory, not loudly, not brightly, just as a real, soft feeling that no one else quite replaces. Some women don't want to be held back. They only want someone who's gentle enough to leave without causing pain, and if you can do that with a kiss on the wrist, by holding the most delicate part of her without making it recoil, then maybe, just maybe, you've truly touched the deepest part of her, the part she usually hides, believing no one is soft enough to hold it. Because sometimes what people remember forever isn't the promise to return, but the way you left, fully, gratefully, without hurting anyone at all. When a woman is truly grown, she doesn't need a hand that clings to hers, nor someone who rushes to hold her like they're afraid to lose her. She needs someone slow enough not to pass her by, gentle enough not to hurt her, and calm enough that she doesn't have to armor up just to feel safe. There are places in her soul that have been asleep for a long time, not because no one saw them, but because no one stepped in softly enough. She doesn't need to be owned, she needs to be understood. She doesn't need grand compliments, just someone quiet enough to hear the things she's never said. She doesn't need to be held tightly, only touched in the right place. The place even she forgot could still feel. It's not a touch to claim, it's a touch to understand. There are touches that don't make the heart race, but make the breath slow. They don't burn, but they leave an afterglow. And a woman who's been through enough. She's not looking for someone to intoxicate her. She wants someone who lets her be herself without changing, without bracing. Someone quiet enough to stay, or kind enough to leave. I didn't come to change anyone. I just want to be someone you can take your armor off around, without fear of getting hurt. And when it's time to say goodbye, I won't cling. I won't rush a half-finished hug, or make a promise that fades. I'll leave behind a gesture quiet enough to stay in your heart, like the way someone folds a letter they once kept close to their chest. Light, but real. From today, I don't touch to keep, I touch to listen. I won't enter with words, but with presence. No knocking, no pressure, no disturbance. If her heart opens, I'll walk in through silence, with hands that don't tie and eyes that never rush, because some vows don't need to be spoken. They live in how you leave light enough not to feel like loss, real enough to never forget. It's not love that burns bright, it's quiet respect. It's being there without taking over. It's love without having to name it. Because sometimes, what stays with someone forever isn't that you stayed, but the way you once touched their soul, with a gentleness they never believed they deserved.